But a big, big welcome, my friend Clif Smith. Clif, where are you, buddy? Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. This is my third year on this stage, and I have to say it is equally as exciting today as it was the first time a few years ago. I think it's a little bit premature for you to write down what was most impactful for you this week, because we still got 45 minutes. I got 45 minutes to change your life. I got 45 minutes to help you take your leadership to the next level. So let's get started. You know, when people see mindfulness on the agenda, one of the common responses that I see is something along the lines of, what the heck is all of this hype about? And it's not surprising that that might be a common response, because there's a ton of hype around mindfulness. I know this because I was in a grocery store recently and I saw two things that struck me: mindful mayonnaise and mindful pistachio nuts. Okay, so you know things are going off the rails a little bit when they're using the term mindfulness to promote those things. But I think once you peel back the layers of all that hype, you get some really powerful exercises that can have a profound impact on your life, not just your leadership, but your life in general. And so I want to do three primary things for you today. I want to demystify mindfulness. I want to show you that you don't have to wear any special beads. You don't have to burn incense or candles. You don't have to buy a meditation cushion. Now, you can do all those things. There's nothing wrong with them, but you don't need them to practice mindfulness. So that's one. We're going to demystify and define it. I want to talk to you a little bit about the benefits and the science of mindfulness, because the research is quite compelling and it's pointing in a very positive direction. And then finally, I want to give you a few practices that you can begin to use today if you want to incorporate mindfulness into your life. And if you don't, that's okay too. This is an invitation. So I've been speaking to you for, I don't know, maybe about 2 minutes. And if I were to ask you to make a few guesses about my socioeconomic status as a kid growing up, you probably wouldn't peg me for being somebody who was raised by a single mother of three, who grew up on welfare, and who lived in government-subsidized housing for much of my childhood. And the reason you wouldn't peg me like that is those just aren't the thoughts that would occur to you in this moment, with me on this stage, dressed like this, looking like this, and working for EY. So we're also going to talk a little bit about our thoughts and how our thoughts create our reality, how our assumptions impact our relationships, in this overall discussion on mindful leadership in the modern world. I think it's helpful to understand where people are coming from when it comes to mindfulness. You know, what's my story? How did it impact me, and why am I up on this stage today? Well, I already mentioned my upbringing. My first home was a trailer home. We got toys from Toys for Tots. I'm not bummed out about my childhood. It's really what got me connected to mindfulness in the first place. My mother entered me into a contest, essentially for poor kids, to win free martial arts lessons. And I was one of the 5 lucky kids who won and got entered into this program. And I learned 3 things that I took forward with me in my life that are associated with mindfulness, although it wasn't called mindfulness at the time. The first thing was I learned to become mindful of my unhelpful internal dialogue. You know, those internal thoughts that say, I'm not good enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not smart enough, I can't do X because I'm not enough Y. All right, so becoming mindful of that internal chatter and being able to move forward despite that internal chatter. So that was 1. 2, becoming mindful of fear. How does fear show up in your body, physiologically? How does it show up in your mind? And can I move forward despite feeling fear? And then the third thing, how to maintain my focus on what I wanted to be on without being distracted. And I have to say that it was a lot easier to do that 33 years ago, before we had cell phones and social media. So I took those things forward in my life. I have to say I didn't apply them in high school. I like to say I graduated high school, barely. I was the bottom third of the class. But I did graduate. I graduated on Friday, and I was in the Army on Monday. Now, I always wanted to join the military. I come from a military family, and I wanted to earn my freedom. So I joined the military, and I get on a plane to go fly to basic training. First time I'd ever been on a plane, and I'm racked with fear. No idea that I had a fear of planes or flying or heights, and I'm white-knuckling the armrests, my heart's racing, sweat beating, and I realized, I need to get over this at some point. Now, clearly, I got through that situation, But this was something I was going to have to face. Little did I know I was going to have to face it a lot earlier than I thought. I was assigned to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. There's probably some veterans in here. What they do at Fort Bragg, North Carolina is this. They jump out of planes. Now, I didn't have to jump out of planes. I got to volunteer to go to airborne school, and I did. And what I learned from that experience was when you can feel that level of fear in your body and move forward and be okay on the other side, when you can do that consistently, there's no goal that's unreachable. And so I'm in the Army about 3 years, and somebody says to me, "Hey, Clif, we need Chinese linguists in the Army. Would you be willing to become a Chinese linguist?" And if you think that the kid who barely graduated high school had some unhelpful internal dialogue about his intellectual capabilities, you would be right. I think the first thought that came to me was something like, "Hey, buddy, don't you remember you failed high school English, your native language? And you had to retake that course in order to graduate. Do you really think you can learn one of the most difficult languages in the world?" Fortunately, I recognized that I was having that thought, and I said, "You know what, I'm going to go for this anyway. It seems like an exciting job." So I went to Monterey, California, and graduated from our language institute. And this was about the time I started to get a little bit of confidence in my intellectual ability. So I said, "You know what, I graduated on Friday from high school, was in the Army on Monday. I didn't go to college. Maybe I should start taking some college classes." So I started taking classes at different places in my assignments, and I rolled all up into an online undergraduate degree at Bellevue University in Nebraska. Now, I've never been in Nebraska. This is all online. And this is about 10 years in the military now. And you can imagine if I'm in the Army and I'm a Chinese linguist, I'm probably doing intelligence work. And I was doing signals intelligence. Well, at 10 years, I decided, I want to do something that has me connected with people more often. And so I moved from signals to human intelligence, interacting with folks. Where do you think the U.S. government, so I leave the military, but I joined the Department of Defense as a civilian. Where do you think the Department of Defense sends Chinese-speaking intelligence officers? You probably think China. No, they send you to Afghanistan. And Iraq as well. But that's okay. They were really exciting assignments. I learned a lot. And I came back, and they did give me a chance. I don't know if they felt sorry for me that they sent me to those two places, but they allowed me to go to the Joint Military Attaché School, which is basically a school to become a diplomat. And I was eventually assigned to represent our country in Beijing, China, at the U.S. Embassy. And so if you look at the arc of my life, poor kid, wrong side of the tracks, learns Chinese, gets educated, to be able to represent the United States of America in that country was really the pinnacle of my career. And I was on top of the world. Right about to the time I got there, and I immediately started to notice that everybody around me was absolutely brilliant, just amazing people. And I quickly started to feel like an imposter. Like, I don't belong here. These folks are going to figure out that I didn't come the same route that they did, and it's going to be over for me. And so when a friend of mine suggested that I apply to Harvard when I was thinking about going to grad school, my initial response was, "You're out of your something mind." Yeah, you fill in the blank. I have to keep it really clean here at this event. But I told him, I was like, "Look, you know my background. I barely graduated high school. Hey, did you hear? I have an online undergraduate degree. I got it before it was cool. And I'm not sure it's cool yet. I mean, I don't know. You guys tell me." And I thought this was interesting, so I don't think success is just achievement after achievement, right? We could have a whole conversation about true fulfillment in life. But I certainly had enough evidence in my life that just because something seems impossible, just because something feels impossible, doesn't mean it is impossible. And I wanted to know why that was happening. And what I discovered is it's because our brains aren't designed to make us happy. Our brains are designed to keep us alive. They're designed for survival. And so what my brain did is it projected what's the likely outcome of this, and that prediction was failure. Well, what does failure equal to our brains? Pain. And so what my brain did was serve up the thoughts and beliefs and the impulses that would nudge me towards safety, towards inaction, to keep me in my comfort zone. Well, your comfort zone is where your dreams go to die. Your comfort zone is a cage. Fortunately for me, my colleague asked me on a daily basis, did you apply? Did you apply? And at one point I thought, is this the thing that I'm going to give up on? I have all these other things that I didn't think I could do, but I decided to try. Is this going to be the thing that I sort of fall back? And so I decided to apply, and much to my surprise, and everyone else's surprise, believe me, I got accepted to Harvard. And I went and I graduated with a master's in public administration. And what I learned from this, is what inspired me to become an executive coach and to roll mindfulness into my coaching, because it's such a powerful tool for uncovering and transcending limiting beliefs and all the other things that you're going to hear about today that it does. So that's why I do what I do. Right? So what is mindfulness? Well, I'm a fan of pictures, probably because I was in the Army for so long. They use a lot of pictures. If you take a look at this image, the individual on the left, they're in a scene, a few trees, the sun's out. And I don't know what's going on in their mind. Maybe it's busy season. Maybe they're thinking about what they have to do for the holidays, party planning, but they're definitely not in that moment, okay? And so that's sort of like anti-mindfulness. And you look at the other individual on the right-hand side, same scene, few trees, sun's out, and they're actually present. They're not narrating their experience. They're not judging their experience, and we'll talk about what that is in a moment. And so what I want to do for you is to move you from like the M all the way over to like the I in terms of your baseline level of mindfulness. That's the increase you're going to get today. So it's a very low bar. But in terms of your knowledge, your understanding of what mindfulness is, how it can help you, what are the benefits, I'm going to move you all the way across the screen. But unfortunately, knowledge isn't enough, right? If knowledge was enough, I would have six-pack abs, I would be eating right, we'd all be going to the gym every day. Knowledge isn't enough. So mindfulness is sort of like swimming, right? You could read all the books about swimming, but until you jump in the pool, you're not going to become a better swimmer. You really have to do these practices. So from a definitional perspective, there's really two key parts. Being able to keep your attention in the present moment on purpose and allowing that present moment to unfold without getting too caught up in our automatic thoughts and judgments about what's happening. And so what's that mean in real terms? So say this meeting was at 7:30 in the morning, and you're not a morning person, you really need your coffee. And you come into the EY meeting, you see a spread of food, EY always has food, and you notice distinctively that there's no coffee. So you walk in and you might say to yourself, oh my gosh, there's no coffee. What the heck am I going to do? Do I have time to run to Starbucks? No, there's only 2 minutes. What a horrible day. I'm going to have a horrible day. EY is not a great place to work, right? So that's sort of slightly negative. Well, first of all, you can see there's no coffee, and yet you say to yourself, oh my gosh, there's no coffee. Who are you talking to? That's that inner voice we all have. Now, that was slightly negative. It can be on the positive side, too. You could walk in, they have your favorite coffee, Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks. Same thing. Wow, they have Dunkin' Donuts. This is amazing. This is going to be a great day. I love EY. This is amazing, right? That was slightly positive. Unfortunately, our narrative is primarily negative. And did you notice how quickly the mind slipped into projecting how the whole day is going to go because one small thing didn't meet our expectations? And mindfulness can help us get out of that habit. But why should you even listen beyond this slide? You just got promoted at the best of the Big Four. You are extremely successful people by any measure on this planet. And you've probably gotten to where you are today without a daily mindfulness practice. So why even pay attention? Well, one of the things we do here at EY is we help companies transform. And we help them transform because the world is transformed. Right? The volume and velocity of data, of change, of innovative technologies that companies have to assimilate into their business models in order to survive is massive. And so we help usher them through that change, not so that they just survive, but so they thrive. Do we really think that we're immune from the changes in the transformative age? Right? The volume and velocity of data that you all have to manage every day is massive. The blurring between home time and work time is massively different. The constant barrage of attempts to snatch your attention. You know, most people don't control their attention or own it, although they think they do. There's probably 2 apps on your phone that have the majority of your attention. And then EY clients and colleagues and leaders, they get a big chunk. Game of Thrones probably got a big chunk a few weeks ago. And maybe, and it's a pretty big maybe your family, your friends, loved ones, spouses, partners, maybe they get what's left over. And even what they get is often fractured. Right? Mindfulness can help us overcome that. And there's also a way we work in the world that's not very helpful. And so we're going to do a quick exercise. You should have a pad of paper at your tables. Go ahead and take a page out of that pad of paper and grab a pen. And turn that page horizontally. And go ahead and draw a line down the center, just like on the screen here. And then go ahead and put your pens down. This is a pretty type A competitive bunch, and the whole goal of this exercise is to do it as quickly as possible. And so I'm going to describe the exercise, and then we're going to switch the screen to a stopwatch. So I don't want you to start until we've switched the screen and I say go. So here's what you're going to do. Above the line, you're going to write A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, all the way to the letter Z. All right, this is not a trick question. Don't start. A8, you guys are already starting. Really competitive. This isn't a trick question. I want you to write all the letters of the alphabet. And then below the line, immediately after that, you're going to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way to the number 26. Also not a trick question, okay? So it's going to be timed. Can we switch the screen to the stopwatch? All right, ready? Begin. Can we start the stopwatch? All right. I don't see the stopwatch moving. Thank you. All right, so we're going to stop the stopwatch at 45 and reset it, please. Maybe. Thank you. And then can we go back to the slides for a moment? All right, great job. You're going to have to add like 10 seconds to your score, so don't be like, oh yeah, I did this in 10 seconds. This is amazing. Are we back on the? Okay, perfect. So go ahead and turn that page over and draw another line. And then put your pens down again, A8, especially you guys. So this happens almost all the time. I heard it a little bit here when I do this. So I've done this for about 30,000 people here at EY. The first person done typically will finish, and then they'll go like this. So everybody knows I was the fastest one. So it happened. It wasn't A8 though. Sorry, guys. All right, so here's what you're going to do. This time, again, don't start. This time you're going to go A1, B2, C3, D4, E5, all the way to Z26. Okay? You're going to try to do it as quickly as possible. Can we switch the screen back to the stopwatch? Ready? Begin. This is my only break during this presentation. Hearing a lot of pens now. You're like 368th. All right, we can stop it at 105. Awesome. Thank you. And can we go back to the deck? Awesome. All right, so go ahead and raise your hand if you took longer the second time than you did the first time. All right, so I've just established you're all humans. All right, now raise your hand if you made a mistake the second time and didn't the first time. It's okay, you can be honest, I made it. It's normally about 50 to 70%. So what do you think this is showing us? What do you think this is showing us? What this is showing us is something that we all do, and we think is effective, but it's not. It's showing us that multitasking is a myth. Right? We think we're good at multitasking. People put this on their resumes, people put it in vacancy announcements. But what science shows us is that our brains just don't multitask the way we would like them to or the way we think they do. We place our attention on an object or a task, and if we want our attention on this other object or task, we have to pull our attention and reorient it. So we really don't multitask. What we do is serially single task or context switch. And what science shows us, and what this very unscientific exercise shows us, when we do that, we're much less efficient. We're much more likely to make errors. And look, this is ABC 1, 2, 3. You know, we've been doing this since we're 5 years old. 9 for me, I was a late bloomer. But we've been doing this for a really long time. And so when you think about the complex issues that you deal with every day, and the changes and the distractions that we face, you can imagine that the inefficiency and the error rate probably goes up. And so let's talk about some of the distractions we have in today's modern world. According to Gloria Mark, a researcher out of the University of California, office workers are interrupted every 3 minutes. Now these are phones ringing in your office, people coming by your desk. I work in Workplace of the Future, right? It's a big open room and there's activity around us. There's a lot of distraction. And not only that, employees check Facebook 21 times. Probably nobody in here checks Facebook 21 times a day, I'm sure. Snapchat's like 18 times a day. People check their email on average 74 times a day. And then 65 to 134. That is the number of texts on average people send per day. And not only do they have all these distractions, one second. This is my wife. No, it's not my wife, right? Has anybody, this is an important question to pay attention to, has anybody here not had the experience? Has anybody here never experienced the situation where you're in a conversation and a phone comes out, whether you've done it or the person opposite you've done it? Has anybody not experienced that? Okay, so now we're up to like 31,000 people have never raised their hand. Well, if I have my phone out while I'm presenting to you, do you feel like you're the most important audience in the world or most important to me? Probably not. Well, what if I do this? Hold on, what if I do this? Then, now are you feeling really important? Or wait, my favorite one. Are you feeling more important now? No, right? You don't. It has some kind of an impact on the relationship, right? There's science that shows it takes 3 positive interactions to overcome every 1 negative interaction, all right? Every relationship you have, there's an invisible relationship bank account. Positive interactions are deposits, negative interactions are withdrawals. So as you take the leadership mantle and people are looking up to you, and your mentees come in and they're face-to-face with you, pay attention, be mindful of them and what image and culture you're setting for them, okay? So we have all of these distractions. What's the impact? Well, according to that same research, it takes over 23 minutes to get back on task. And in those 23 minutes, you're more likely to be making errors, and you're certainly being less efficient, right? And it's not just these external distractions that impact us. There's internal distractions as well. I imagine many of you or most of you drive or have driven. And raise your hand if you've ever driven somewhere, maybe a place you go often, and somewhere in the middle of the drive you sort of wake up having missed a few miles. You can be honest, right? Or you really hope that traffic light you went through was green. Yeah, we've all been there. See, we're often in the future thinking about something that's coming up, worried about it, anxious about it, or we're in the past, regretting something we've done. Maybe you're regretting something you did last night. I don't know. I'm not going to ask. Or wanting something back that's already gone. We rarely sit in and experience the present moment, and it has a huge impact on us. According to a Harvard study, we're in that situation 47% of the time. So 47% of the time, our bodies are one place and our minds are ruminating about the future or regretting the past. And that number is correlated with depression and anxiety. So the more you're in that situation, the more likely you are to be depressed and anxious, and less likely to be happy and content. Now, why might that be? I mean, isn't thinking good? Didn't thinking give us all this amazing technology that we have at EY? We talk about robotic process automation, AI, machine learning. Well, thoughts did manifest those technologies, but our thoughts aren't always very helpful. Bring to mind for a moment your best friend. Just bring that person to mind, whoever that is. And now imagine your best friend says to you out loud the things you've said to yourself during your most self-critical moments. So your best friend says to you, who do you think you are going out for that promotion? You're not good enough for that. Or you think that person, you think he's going to give you the time of day? He's way out of your league. Or you think you can rock that dress at the club? I don't think so. Right? Now, would you be friends with somebody that treated you that way, talked to you that way? I know I wouldn't be friends with my inner critic. But we say things to ourselves that we would probably get into an altercation with somebody if they said those things to us out loud. And not only do we say those things to ourselves, we believe them. You see, it's precisely when we're about to take a bold move, sitting up at the main table, raising our hand to take a promotion. It's precisely when we're about to do that that critic comes up and tells us about why we're not the person that can do it. And there's a reason for that. It's because we have this thing called a negativity bias. You see, it's more advantageous for us to see a rope on the ground and mistake it for a snake and avoid it. Like, oh, I don't want to get bit by that snake. It's actually a rope, right? It's better for us to make that error than it is to make the opposite error. To see a snake on the ground and think it's that rope you've been looking for all afternoon, you bend over and pick it up, and you get bit in the neck. Done, right? Our ancestors that made that mistake, they didn't make it. We're not related to them, okay? We're related to the folks that made the first mistake. But what we did was we inherited from them this tendency to see a threat when there's not a threat, and if there is a threat, to actually blow it way out of proportion so that we'll make the safest choice, so that we'll make the choice that keeps us in our comfort zone. And we already know what happens in our comfort zone, right? But see, this negativity bias, it also colors our entire reality. It creates stories that aren't in service to our happiness, and it can make otherwise benign situations seem kind of miserable. It's why people in a metal tube going from New York to LA in 5 hours, experiencing the miracle of flight, will complain because the Wi-Fi is a little too slow, or they had to wait 15 minutes on the tarmac. I saw a guy the other day lash out at everybody around him and almost give himself a heart attack because he had to put his overhead luggage 2 rows behind where he's sitting, which apparently is a capital crime in this country. And what's happening is sort of an overlooking, a missing of what's pretty amazing about the situation. So yeah, I'll grant you this. The Wi-Fi might be a little slow, but it's connecting to a satellite that humans built, launched into space, and it's orbiting the Earth, and it's connecting you down to the greatest body of knowledge that we've ever assembled since we've been writing on, in cuneiform on clay tablets. So that's kind of neat. You're taking a trip in 5 hours that used to take 4 to 6 months, and you used to have to do it in huge groups because a third of the people would perish along the way. So that's kind of cool that you can traverse the nation in 5 hours. And I don't know about you. I fly a lot. I don't know about you. If anything isn't working right on my plane, I want it to be the Wi-Fi. I mean, you want it to be something else, the left engine, the tail fin, right? Now look, mindfulness, the folks that are, that gentleman, he's having a viscerally bad experience. It's impacting his level of stress, cortisol in his blood, because he's given power and primacy to his automatic negative thoughts and judgments of the situation, only noticing what's not meeting his expectations. Now look, mindfulness isn't about sweeping the negative stuff under the rug and only seeing rainbows and butterflies and only having joyful thoughts. If anybody tells you that, they're sending you down an unhelpful path. But what it can do, one of the things it does, is it allows you to see the full range of your experience, not just the small number of things that aren't meeting your expectations. allows you to see and savor and experience the full range of your experience. And it's life-changing. And so we can't just keep talking about it, we have to practice it. But before we do, I want to draw a distinction between mindfulness and meditation, because the terms are often very confused. And we're going to talk a little bit about meditation. So the relationship between mindfulness and meditation is similar to the relationship between fitness and exercise. You don't go to the gym and exercise so that you're fit in the gym. You go to the gym and work out so that when you leave the gym, you have a higher level of fitness. Well, mindfulness and meditation have the same relationship. You do formal meditation practice so that when you're not doing formal meditation, you have a higher baseline level of mindfulness. And the word meditation is kind of like sports, right? Sports could be football, hockey, golf, bowling, maybe, I don't know. But sports is a basket of terms, okay? Meditation is a basket of things. Like you could have a guided visualization of you on the beach and waves crashing and the sun rising designed to relax you. Maybe a very powerful meditation, but that's not a mindfulness meditation. Saying a word over and over in your head, a mantra meditation, could be a very powerful meditation. That's not mindfulness meditation. There's two primary types of mindfulness meditations. Focused attention, where you place your attention on an object, usually the breath, and when your attention wanders away from that, you just bring it back. Focused attention. And then there's open monitoring or open awareness we don't have time to go into. And so we're going to do this exercise. Focused attention, awareness of breath. So go ahead and sit up a little bit more straight in your chairs and put both feet flat on the floor. And the whole idea behind this posture is to just embody an intention of being awake and alert. Okay, you can place your hands in anywhere that's comfortable. You do not have to do this. Okay, you can do that if you want to, but you don't have to. All right, I would invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Otherwise, you can just lower your gaze down at about a 45-degree angle and soften your focus. Okay, and the idea behind closing your eyes for this particular exercise is just to eliminate visual distraction. So now take a moment and notice where you feel the body breathing most prominently. This might be noticing the air moving in and out of your nose as you inhale and exhale. Noticing those sensations. But it could also be noticing the sensations associated with the rising and falling of your chest or your abdomen. Any of these places is perfectly fine. If you have trouble finding the spot, it's okay to take a deeper breath for 2 or 3 breaths, intentionally, just to get a sense of where this spot is for you. And then release any impulse to control your breathing. This isn't a breathing exercise. We're not trying to change our breathing pattern. This isn't yogic breathing or box breathing. This is an exercise in attention and awareness. So noticing the sensations for the full duration of each in-breath and the full duration of each out-breath. Now you might find after a moment that your mind gets caught up in a thought, maybe a thought about what you're doing now, maybe a judgment about what you're doing now. When this happens, it's not a mistake. Just notice what your mind got caught in and gently escort your attention back to the sensations of breathing. And this mind wandering will happen again and again. So if your mind wanders 500 times, 1,000 times, or 10,000 times, just noticing it and escorting your attention back to the breath just as many times. And I would invite you to go ahead and open your eyes and bring your attention back into the room. And just take a moment to notice what impact, if any, that had on your state of being. So that's one of the most basic mindfulness exercises that you can begin to incorporate into your life today if you want to start to increase your baseline level of mindfulness. It's very simple, although it's not necessarily easy. So what can a simple exercise like that actually do for people? Well, here are the results of our internal 8-week mindful leadership course on EY Virtual Academy. And they do exercises like that, other focused attention, open monitoring, and other meditations. And these are 6 factors of about 70 that we track. And so increased energy, about 40%, 24% ability to think more clearly. Rumination down 21%. If you ever wondered why the most elite athletes use mindfulness meditation, that's one of the main reasons. Can you imagine a pitcher? So I'm from the DC area, and that's just won the World Series. Could you imagine a pitcher who throws a pitch, has a home run hit on him, and that person can't get that mistake out of their head? Do you think that person, if they ruminate over and over about that mistake, is going to be in the major leagues? No way. That's a skill to not ruminate about the errors and the challenges that we face. Increased, job satisfaction, 14%. I don't know that that's actually impressive. It might be, but what I think is more impressive is the fact that I didn't call up all the partners and the senior managers and the leaders of the participants in my class and say, hey, for the next 8 weeks, can you just sort of take it easy on, less proposal work, less emails at home? No, they had the same job, they had the same home life, they had the same situation, and yet their experience of life was different, more satisfying. That's one of the powers of mindfulness. And now why can that be? Why can something like that exercise create these kinds of outcomes? So let's talk about what's happening when you do an exercise like that. So you place your attention on the breath. You're noticing the sensation of breathing, right? This is an innate human skill that we all have, to notice things. So you notice your breathing, and then you get distracted. I don't know, you think about your best girlfriend, and then you think about the boyfriend she's dating, and then you think about, I don't really like that guy, and what would I do if he hurts her? And then you think, you know what, if I did that to him, I'd probably be interacting with the police pretty soon, and I don't want that. I just got promoted to DUI. And then 20 minutes later, you're in jail trying to get out of jail. This is what our brains do. They sort of proliferate one thought after another thought. It's like getting on the internet to check your email, and 20 minutes later, you're looking up Illuminati conspiracy theories or something. All right, so, when you realize you're lost in thought and you wake up, that is a moment of mindfulness. That's like waking up in that car ride, okay? And so when that happens, please don't criticize yourself for being lost in thought. This will happen hundreds of thousands and millions of times if you practice mindfulness. Don't criticize yourself, because we get better at what we repeatedly do. And if you do this cycle over and over again and criticize, you're going to get much better at self-criticism. I don't think any of us need to get better at that. So distraction arises, you notice it, you start to bring your attention back to the breath. When you start to bring your attention back to the breath, you're practicing the ability to let go of a thought stream. It's a skill, right? I've already established you're all humans, so you've probably all been in arguments. You've probably been in an argument that lasted, 2 minutes. But then for the next 2 or 3 hours or days, you're still coming up with comebacks you really wish you would have used in that argument? Or are you going to put that in your back pocket for the next argument you already anticipate having? Wouldn't it be great to be able to set down that ruminating thought and focus on what's most important? Or you're just trying to get sleep, and the ruminating thoughts in your head, be able to set that down and get a good night's sleep, pick it up the next day. That's a skill. Anytime you notice what your mind gets caught in, over time, you begin to see your own habits and patterns of mind. We all have different ones, neural pathways in our brain. And those neural pathways and those unconscious behaviors, although they're unconscious, they're influencing what we do, how we show up in the world. Once you become aware of some of these patterns, then you can begin to do something about them. And then anytime you focus your attention on the breath, you're practicing the ability to stay focused, to not be distracted. So you can control your attention, not a social media app, not the news channel, things like that. And so this whole cycle, it's like a rep for your brain. So if you don't like the term mindfulness, throw it away, right? If that's too hippy-dippy, woo-woo, use meditation training, attention training, mental conditioning, because that's what you're doing. And so we talked about transformative leadership. We talked about leadership, and we talked about purpose here today. So let's talk about how this impacts those. So there's 3 primary areas that are impacted through mindfulness: emotional intelligence, physical and mental health, and performance and innovation. And so when you have greater self-awareness, you're able to see things like your strengths and your weakness, have more clarity of your purpose. when you have more self-awareness, you're better able to self-manage, right? Your relationships improve because you're actually able to give the gift of attention to someone. You're able to feel empathy and compassion in a much more effective way. Greater well-being, you're able to navigate stress more effectively. Enhanced performance because of the ability to concentrate. The ability to stay poised amidst high-pressure situations. The ability to do divergent thinking, all leading to becoming a transformative leader. Someone who's purpose-driven and who can manage this transformative age effectively, right? I like to say, purpose without mindfulness is like having a compass in your pocket and still getting lost because you forget it's in there, all right? Mindfulness can help us stay with that purpose in mind. And so I want to leave you with two things. One is an exercise. So we did a formal meditation. Now I want to give you an in-the-moment practice that you can use throughout your daily lives. Maybe use it between meetings because, EY has a meeting that ends at 2 and the other one starts at 2 and it's 3 floors up and 2 buildings over. And so you don't have a lot of time to reset and recenter. And emotions are contagious and they're sticky, and if you've just been in one meeting and it's been really contentious, a lot of times we bring that stuff into the next meeting. So this is great for transitions, home to work, meeting to meeting. And so you just stop. Just pause for a moment. And you take a breath. And you notice the sensations of breathing just like we did in that exercise. And then you observe. Observe what's happening outside of you. Notice the pattern on the carpet or the color of the wall. And then turn that focus inwardly and observe what's happening inside of you. Thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Not trying to push them away, just noticing what's here. Oh, anxiety. Oh, fear, anger, whatever it is. And then pose and proceed. Pose the question, what's important now? And then you'll proceed with intention. And so one place I use this, I pull into my driveway at home, turn off the car, go through this process, pose the question, what's important now? And for me, in that moment, in that situation, it's normally, I want to walk into my house and be as present as possible for my wife and 5-year-old son. And then I walk into the house. Now look, I work at EY like you. I have one of these in my pocket, and it's within 1 foot of me for about 24 hours a day, like most of you. Does it mean that the phone doesn't come out at home? Of course not. It does come out sometimes. But if I don't set the intention, I'm much more likely to habitually reach for this, even if it's not even buzzing. And my son might come up to me at the end of the day or at the end of his week, and he might want to tell me a story. And it may be the only story he wants to tell me. And I could be so into this device that he turns around and walks away, and I don't even register that interaction occurred. But he'll certainly recognize it. Right? Mindfulness can help us savor the moments we have with our family, the precious few moments that we get, and help us not fragment all that attention. And so how can you bring this into your life? So doing this 10 minutes a day, that exercise we just did, that's a great start. There are a lot of apps out there, Headspace, Calm, Insight Timer. If you download Insight Timer, search for my name, and you'll get access to all the meditations that we use in our 8-week course. Turn off unnecessary notifications, social media off your phone. That helps eliminate some of those external distractions we have so that you can be a bit more efficient. Setting a specific times to check email. This is sort of like binning different activities so you can really focus. Okay? Using your phone as a bridge versus a barrier. Look, these things are ubiquitous. They're always going to be, they've been in our lives for a while. They're going to continue to be here. So it behooves us to have a different relationship with them, one that's more effective. So use the phone to set up the meeting, to set up the appointment, and then put it away so that you can really focus with the other person. I guarantee you it's going to impact your relationships and certainly your ability to be an exceptional leader. Take awareness breaks, mindful minute to arrive. Just like I said in the meetings, give yourself 30 seconds. If you're running the meeting, give your team 30 seconds and just acknowledge, hey, we're all busy. Let's take 30 seconds to get present. Sign up for our 8-week mindful leadership course. It's on EY Virtual Academy. You'll be able to get some information on the SharePoint after this. And then, so I'm talking about leadership and mindfulness. We also have a lot of well-being benefits. So EY Assist, certainly in the US, EY Assist, the Better You program. There's 2 apps, Sleepio, which helps with sleep hygiene, and Mequilibrium, which helps with resilience. I would encourage you to avail yourselves of those opportunities as well. So when I first started this, I shared with you my journey. You all are on an unknown but promising journey as well. And it's going to be full of achievements and accolades and love, but it's going to have its fair share of heartache, setback, and failure. I would encourage you to be present for it all. For just as you can't truly know sweet without also knowing sour, it's our challenges in life that make our achievements so fulfilling. And don't miss all the small, subtle, seemingly trivial moments between your to-dos, your tasks, and your lofty goals. Those goals and tasks are important, to be sure. Just like the finale is a very important part of the symphony. But the point isn't just to get to the end of the symphony as fast as possible. Each note, high or low, and even the silence between those notes is the point. Without all of those elements, we wouldn't have any music at all. It's kind of like dancing. The point of dancing isn't to get from this part of the dance floor over to that part of the dance floor. The point is in the dancing itself. So enjoy your journey. It's going to look something like this here. The one on the bottom. Okay, definitely not going to look like the one on the top. But that's okay. Each of those moments, high or low, is a note in the symphony of your life. Be grateful for them. Be present for them. You don't want to get to the end of that journey like the end of that car ride, having missed most of it because you were lost in thought. Look, mindfulness isn't just going to make you a better leader and improve your emotional intelligence. It's just not going to help you navigate stress more effectively. It's not going to just help you connect with your family and friends and colleagues more effectively. It'll do all those things. But what it'll also do is help you greet the last moments of that journey knowing that you were awake for the whole show. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the sweetest fruits of mindfulness. And with that, I thank you.
Wow.
Thanks, man.
That's awesome, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Keep it going for Clif. That was awesome, wasn't it? Every time I hear that, it reminds me, we've got to be in the moment. We've got to take time to pause and practice some of those techniques. Great job, Clif. Thank you very much.